Angie? Which one? All right, can we start the, hey, I want to confirm, TD, are you able to hear us, sir?
Yes, I am.
Because we can't hear him.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can. There you go.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to call the meeting to order. I'm going to call the regular meeting of the board is now called to order. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Yes, sir. Mr. Biederman.
Present.
Mr. Bixby.
Present.
Dr. Mercado. Present. Ms. Haynes. Present. Reverend Robinson.
Present.
Thank you. Judge Salinas.
Present.
And Ms. Tribble. Present. Yes.
Okay, recognizing a quorum, we'll move on to item 3, public comment and communication. The public has been invited to the board meetings. At every board meeting, we open for the time for public comment. We welcome feedback from the public about our Indianapolis libraries. And this is a time when the public may address the library board. If there are several of you representing the same group, please select a spokesperson. Please do not repeat the same comments someone else has offered. Please note also that this is a public comment time is not the appropriate forum for commenting on matters related to alleged employee misconduct. Any such matters should be brought to the attention of the library's CEO or interim CEO or the Human Resource Department, where matters can be properly addressed in compliance with established library policies and procedures. A 5-minute time limit will be allowed for each speaker. Each speaker should give their name and their address. Is it Ms. Hayes? Yeah. You're okay. Let me see the first name. Is it Michelle or Nicole?
Michelle.
Michelle.
My name is Michelle M. Hayes, and I'm the founding leader of the Center for Black Literature and Culture, Indianapolis Public Library. The last few months have been one of incredible change within our organization. I sincerely hope that more change will occur in order to place us in the best possible position for success. My colleagues across the system are an amazing group of people with tremendous talent and compassion. In order for us to rise to our true potential, we need support from management, correct staffing models, and increased compensation. I think that IndyPL can become an employer of choice in this community. I believe this can happen if we work together to honestly assess our current strengths and weaknesses and use that to map our steps in the next direction. I look forward to seeing board members visit our branches, adult programs, and to get to know staff members across our system. I think this will help you to adequately determine what the future holds for us. Sincerely, Michelle M. Hayes, MPA MLS.
Thank you, Ms. Hayes.
Good evening. I'm here tonight as a taxpayer with a concern about the Diversity Policy and HR Resources Committee Resolution 47-2021, approval to award a service contract for a climate assessment and improvement process for Indianapolis-Marion County Public Library. I understand that the principal responsibility for the Board of Trustees is to be good stewards of our money. I would wager and probably win in stating that 99.9% of the contracts this board has approved has been to the lowest bids. Contracts for IT, contracts for services like landscaping, maintenance, building improvements, etc. So by not being able to know before a vote on who the award is going to go for the climate improvement process kind of leaves us at a disadvantage. This project started out at $0. And knowing that other quotes have come in, it would be irresponsible to award it to the most, it would be irresponsible not to award it to the most effective, cost-effective company. To top it off, we know that the library went before the Municipal Corporations Committee to ask for more money to finish the Glendale and Fort Bend branches. The previous CEO gave the impression that there was no alternative, then any lowering of the cost by way of square footage would not make it feasible. I bet if you ask the community, they would probably feel different. So I'm asking that the board make the best decision with our tax dollars in awarding the climate improvement process to a vendor who is the most cost effective. Thank you.
Hi, I really don't like doing this. I'm sending this in regards to a lady named Kathy who worked at the Hallville branch. She was absolutely disgusting to me when I asked at 5:45 if she could fax documents that I needed faxed today, or I would lose my health and food benefits. She told me she can't fax 15 minutes before the branch closes and that Kroger faxes. I had asked her how anyone would know that, and also that it doesn't say that over the intercom, like the message that the computer shut off 5 minutes before closing. She said I would have had to come to the desk and ask her when they stopped faxing, which, since there is no message or poster stating that, I assumed it was 6 p.m. She was nasty to me and told me Kroger could help me. Well, today Kroger Money Services was closed due to Kathy, if that's her given name. I've lost and had to reapply for insurance and food benefits. There's also a bald guy who saw the entire conversation and didn't apologize for his coworker's attitude toward me. I was treated like less than a human by every employee in this library, and I will never return to this branch again. That's all.
Is that a policy?
It is not our policy, actually, and I would like to make clear that that came to me as well, and so I sent that to Greg for follow-up, and we did address it with that employee. That's one of the reasons why we schedule people to stay 15 minutes after closing, is so we can address requests that come in right before the closing hours, if no one feels rushed to get out the door. So that should not have happened. I haven't had a chance to follow up with Greg on the specifics, but we did address that.
Thank you. No other letters, correct?
If there are no more questions.
We'll move on to item 4. Approval of the minutes, executive session, regular special meetings. A is our executive session, August 12th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the executive session held August 12th, 2021? So moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Dr. Murtada. Approved. Ms. Payne. Approved. Reverend Robinson.
Approve.
Judge Salinas.
Approved.
And Ms. Schultz. Approved. Thank you.
We'll now move to the special meeting, which was held on August 20th, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of that special meeting that was held on August 20th, 2021?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman. Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Dr. Murtada. Approved. Ms. Payne. Approved. Reverend Robinson.
Approve.
Judge Salinas.
Approved.
And Ms. Schultz. Approved. Thank you.
And now finally, the regular meeting that we had for August, which was on August 23rd, 2021. Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the regular meeting held August 23rd, 2021?
Approved.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion on the matter? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Dr. Murtada. Approved. Ms. Payne. Approved. Reverend Robinson.
Approve.
Judge Salinas.
Approved.
And Mr. Schultz. Approved. Thank you.
Motion carries. We'll move on to committee reports. Item number 5, which is the Finance Committee. The chairperson, Dr. Payne.
Before we move into the finance, I'd like to thank the individuals who gave public comment. Michelle Hayes, thank you for drawing attention to this fact that we have in the midst of an incredible time of change, and that the staff needs support. And you also spoke to issues of pay. So thank you. Michael Torres, you spoke about the good stewards of the money that the board is responsible for, and that we have paid attention to IT, landscaping, and other measures to always find the most cost-effective company. Thank you, both of you. for the comment.
Yes, I concur on that as well.
PJ isn't with us this evening, and so Carolyn Adams is.
What page on the report is that?
It starts on page 23. Good evening. The treasurer's report for August is actually on page 23 through 40. And actually, if you jump to page 24, that's where I'll be starting. If you look on page 24, that's an overview of our operating fund, our general fund. And it's through August 31st. Our revenues have been 26.3 million, which is 57% of our budget. And our expenditures have been 26.8 million, which is 52% of our operating budget for the year. And going into our last quarter now, it looks like we'll be on target to meet our budget. On page 25 are the monthly charts we provide. And this shows a 4-year historical comparison of where we're at. And we're pretty much on target with our previous years. No anomalies in either our revenues or expenditures. And the rest of the report is available for you to review. Are there any questions at this time about the treasurer's report?
The one thing that I had noted is that there would be funds that would be moving from the digital to the adult collection. Are you getting ready to talk about that?
Yes, that's the next resolution.
All right.
So I will ask for approval for the treasurer's report for August.
Any further discussion or comment from the board or questions with respect to the treasurer's report? Okay, all right, is there a motion to approve the treasurer's report for August?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on item A? Seeing none, can we have a call to roll, Angie?
Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bigby,
Approved.
Dr. Mercado,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Ed Selena,
Approved.
and Mr. Approved.
Motion carries. We'll move on to item B.
And I'm going to ask Deb Lambert to come up and speak about this resolution that pertains to her budget.
Good evening, members of the board.
Good
We're reaching the end of our purchasing year for materials and looking at what we have in funds remaining for ebooks versus print books. Our adult nonfiction selector has more of a budget left over in his ebooks and he would like to shift to spend for more physical books. So that is the reason for the change. Usually we are able to shift within our physical materials budget to adopt things or within our digital ebook budgets, but we can't shift from one to the other. So that's pretty much what we're asking for is approval of this shift. Questions?
Is there a specific area that's targeted on the physical books?
Adult nonfiction.
It's adult nonfiction and the focus will be on diversity titles for the rest of the year.
I'm sorry, I missed that. Thank you. Additional questions from other board members? Is there? I'm
Just a
sorry, go
quick
ahead.
one. When you think about the adult nonfiction, and where are you going to be placing more of these books? How does that get spread and distributed amongst the different branches?
It depends on the subject and how many copies that we would purchase. Some of them, we would only purchase a few copies if it's very academic and research oriented, whereas it's popular fiction, we would buy many more copies. So depending on how many copies we purchase, there's usually one that goes to central, but the rest get moved around. And for our equity target representation budget, or I'm sorry, purchases this year, we are purchasing a minimum of 7 to increase the number of copies that we have in the collection that deal with African American issues and LGBTQ+ issues. And so that goes to more branches, and we want to ensure that those are going to branches like Martindale Brightwood and East 38th Street, but also other branches throughout the system. So that's representation across the whole system. So having the floating collection, we don't buy 24 copies of the book necessarily, but we buy enough that it's throughout the whole system and patrons can place holds wherever they are.
Thank you, that's very helpful to just know that there is some type of distribution of the DEI. It's not only focused in the areas where there's a larger Black community. And you mentioned specifically Black and LGBTQ. We have a growing Latinx community. How is that being addressed?
So our target purchase areas are the three areas we're talking about: African American, Hispanic / Latinx, and LGBTQ plus this year, with a target of a certain, it's a stretch target, and it's for a strategic plan, which is a 3-year period, and this is the first year. So the stretch target goal for African American is 30% of the physical budget of the print budget, and for Latinx and Hispanic, it's 10%, and for LGBTQ plus, it's 5%. Now, those percentages were established based on demographics of the community. When we looked at them last year in 2020, we were looking at 27.7% for African Americans and 7% for Latinx and Hispanic. And we added an additional percentage to boost them up, to round them up, in order to make up for things that we, lower percentages that we purchased in the past, because we have many, many years where we didn't have targets that we're trying to make up for. It's going to take a while, but everything that we can do can help, right?
My apologies to the board and to the people here. I should have kept my mask on all this time. Any additional questions or comments from board members on item B? Is there a motion to approve resolution 46?
Approved.
Is there a second? Second. Any further discussion on resolution 46? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approved?
Mr. Dixon,
Approved.
Dr. McCullough,
Approved.
Ms. Payne,
Approved.
Reverend Robinson,
Approved.
Dr. Lehman,
Approved.
Mr.
Approved.
Motion carries. Thank you. All right, that's all we have for that committee. We'll move on to item 6, Diversity Policy Human Resource Committee. Chairperson Hope.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, everyone. The Diversity Policy and Human Resources Committee has been busy this month. We have met 3 times, all of which to focus on the selection of a vendor to conduct the climate assessment and improvement process. I thank our committee members, Pat King and Curtis Bigby, for your time and effort, and for hundreds of pages review for the 5 vendors who made proposals to conduct that. I did note in the CEO's report that employees had a lot of questions about the climate improvement process, and so I'm pleased to be able to, in just a moment, make a recommendation for selection of a firm. But also there was questions or concerns about the CEO process, and just wanted to note that once we have gotten the climate improvement process underway, our next item up next month will be to start looking at the CEO search process. So if there's no questions, I will read the board action request and some notes about the present, about the recommended selection of the vendor.
Any questions from board?
The Diversity Policy and Human Resources Committee was tasked with identifying service providers with capacity and qualifications for conducting an organizational climate assessment and improvement process for the library. The committee identified experienced practitioners and sought proposals from those practitioners whose combination of experience, processes, and personnel will provide a comprehensive process that incorporates nearly 600 employees, as well as all stakeholders, including the board, administration, employee union and association, patrons, and any other stakeholders appropriate to the process. The goal of the project is to assess, analyze, and inform the board on improving climate and affecting change in furtherance of a more welcoming and supportive place for patrons and staff, and with the additional objective of informing the impending CEO search and providing insight for board governance opportunities. The committee received proposals from 5 service providers, including Black Women, Wise Women LLC, Ice Miller LLP, Whatever It Takes Consulting, Performance 3 LLC, and the Great Lakes Equity Center at IU School of Education, IUPUI. Following receipt of proposals from the identified service providers, the committee heard presentations from all of the providers over the course of 2 of the committee meetings, and also provided follow-up questions to the providers who provided responses, all in short order. The committee considered the following criteria for the selection process. 1, a demonstrated track record in preparing, planning, coordination, and support for similar assessment and improvement identification services sought. 2, proven capabilities in performing and delivering the services for similarly sized organizations. 3, appropriate resources to satisfy the requirements for the services sought. 4, a comprehensive process approach. 5, processes for confidentiality of information gathered. 6, a demonstrated track record in overall client satisfaction. 7, the proposed overall cost. 8, the diversity of the proposed project team. And 9, any other criteria considered relevant by the committee. Based on a review of the consideration of all proposals, responses to questions, and the presentations by all the providers, the Diversity Policy and Human Resources Committee recommends board approval for attached resolution 47-2021 to award the contract for a climate assessment and improvement process analysis to Ice Miller LLP. The services cost of $100,000 will be funded from the operating fund. I did want to take a moment to note that Garrett Mason, the library's strategic planning and assessment officer, has provided a summary chart that we use to assist us in comparing the 5 firms. It was based on the proposals, the responses to the questions, and provided for purposes of a side-by-side comparison. If you have taken a look at that chart, or if you take a look at the chart which is included, you'll see that, well, let me back up a little bit. All the vendors were highly recommended for their expertise in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and as organizational development practitioners. All of the presentations were impressive. So I want to highlight here why the committee has recommended Ice Miller. If you take a look at the chart that Mr. Mason provided, you'll see that there's a core list of deliverables and products that all the firms included in their proposals. Surveys of staff, board, and external stakeholders, focus groups and interviews, and final report with recommendations. However, the recommended firm submitted a more comprehensive plan that extends the engagement to some of the others of the library, including how HR practices in areas such as recruitment, compensation structure, performance evaluation, retention and development, personnel policy, vendor and consultant recruitment, workplace culture, employee demographics, how those things should be considered in the plan to improve the climate. Ice Miller also set itself apart by aligning its plan with the library's strategic priority around racial equity. All of the firms had access to the library's strategic plan, but only Ice Miller included in this plan the intention to use the Government Alliance on Race and Equity framework from there that the library is using in its racial equity work. The committee also sought the insight of staff in reviewing and evaluating the proposal. Staff also supported the Ice Miller plan. I also want to highlight the Ice Miller project team. While Ice Miller may not be a minority firm, the team is comprised of people from underrepresented groups. It will be led by Myra Selby, who is a partner in charge of diversity and inclusion committee at Ice Miller. She's a former justice on the Indiana Supreme Court. She was the first woman and the first African-American to serve as an associate justice on the state Supreme Court. She also was appointed by the court to chair the Commission on Race and Gender Fairness, and she is trained and experienced in commercial mediation and arbitration. From Ice Miller's response to the question about diversity, I just want to read a few words. Ice Miller's project team is diverse in terms of subject matter expertise and spans multiple generations. The team is made up of 3 attorneys who practice substantially different areas of the law, as well as an attorney who does not practice law but has focused her career on diversity and inclusion as well as operations. The team also includes the Director of Public Affairs for Ice Miller, whose work includes representing clients in a wide range of policy matters at the state and local level and providing strategic advice, and most importantly, turning problems into opportunities. 2 people on the team have specific experience with libraries, and everyone on the team identifies as a member of a diverse community. Finally, Ice Miller will engage all the stakeholders of the library by working with a library racial equity climate study action team, which will be comprised of IPL stakeholders and external community stakeholders to provide guidance through the phases of the climate assessment process. That's a summary of the selection and any of the committee members want to add.
Was that a motion?
She's making a motion. Okay, is there a second? Second. Okay. Any further discussion on the motion?
I want to move the substitute performance 3 for Ice Miller. First of all, Ice Miller does not do training. Performance 3 does, as well as a lot of other attributes that will be needed.
Like what?
Like what?
Yeah, which.
They will also be able to inform the process when we look for our CEO.
Yeah, you have a motion second on the floor, you have a motion, struggle on second. Yes, and she's moving to.
But you need to consider the motion, the instant motion, or ask for those motions to be withdrawn for a motion to amend to be made.
Okay.
You have a question on the floor.
Who has a question? Well,
No, I'm saying you have a question.
okay, I got you. Okay. I want to make sure I get this right. Because in the past, from memory, when someone has said, I want to amend a motion, we discuss, is there a second to amend that motion? And then we vote on the proposed amendment. At least that's how I remember doing it. And if there isn't enough, if there isn't a second, and or if there is, and then we put that amendment to the vote, and if it doesn't pass, then we go back to the original motion. Am I wrong in that?
It's not how I would proceed. No, I would, you have a motion, a second, so you could ask the consent of the person who made the motion if they would consider that amendment. If they decline, then I think you need to make the motion to amend Ms. Tribble's motion first. I don't think you can vote on an amendment to a motion as long as there is still a motion second.
Judge,
Yes.
you asked me why. Another reason is that they don't cost $100,000 to perform the same type of services each one of the other groups that came before us, none of them charged more than $30,000 for outstanding service. So I am a member of the HR committee, and I did not vote for the ICE.
Okay. And if, I want to make sure I get this right. So how, Russell, how do you, what is, as our council, what is your advice on how to proceed on the amendment?
I think you need to ask the motion and second to be withdrawn. You could consider an amendment to the request. Take a vote on that amendment. So Ms. Payne could make a request to modify the resolution to substitute the performance provider. You would then take a motion on that modification. I mean, you could also just vote on the motion that's on the floor, which has been moved and properly seconded.
I want to make sure that I give everyone a chance, okay? That there's been a motion to amend to it. Go ahead.
So I'm sorry, so would there be further discussion on Dr. Payne's
There would
amendment?
first
or-
have to be a second. And assuming we got a second, then we would discuss further that amendment. I'm gonna go this route because I want to give everyone a chance and a vote. Basically, it's asking to substitute the recommendation from the committee. Okay? But I want to make sure that we give everyone a chance. So this is the route, not the route, this is the course I'm going to take. There's been a motion put forth by the finance or the diversity committee. There's been a request by a board member to amend the motion by substituting, and it would be performance 3. Is there a second on that motion? Is there a second on the amendment? Okay. So there is no second, it will die for lack of a second. So we will now move forward with further discussion on the original motion. Is there further discussion on the motion that's been put forth, which is resolution 47?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So per the conflict of interest policy, I have to abstain from voting based on the recommendation and the motion that's before.
Okay. For records or for clarification as well, I have been on, in the past, a committee with former Associate Justice Shelby. I've talked to our board counsel, and he said I do not have to recuse myself because there were past committees like 5-10 years ago. So I am allowed to vote. Any further discussions or comments from our board? Yes, I do. Dr. Mattel?
Yes, I was looking at the list of requests for demonstrating track record, proven capabilities, appropriate resources, comprehensive process reports, et cetera. And as I looked through, one of the primary tasks is to have demonstrated track record of what? And so I'd like some elaboration on what's the demonstrated track record of climate improvement processes of public serving organizations and institutions. What's the proven track record there? I'd like to also get a sense of the ways that we talk about climate satisfaction. Primarily because when we're talking about climate satisfaction, that's a period of time that occurs. The chart indicated 90 days to 100. I have to look at the chart, the comparative chart. 90 days to 120 days. You cannot ascertain climate improvement nor cultural improvement of an organization as large as this within a 90 to 120 day period. And so how is that determined as adequate for a climate improvement process? Those two issues are of concern. But outstanding was, I would like for the public to also know how very often I was asked to give additional information to this board again and again, which I provided. And yet were these different groups given more than adequate time to give additional information. I personally recommended, but never contacted and spoke with in order to provide them with lots of information to the Equity Institute at IUPUI, which has significant experience in climate improvement processes with public organizations. And yet they had very few of the checks that Garrett Mason had provided in terms of the summary chart. And so I wondered, how in the world was it that one had everything check. And I said, this is fascinating. And for $100,000, they would be able to improve the climate and speak to climate satisfaction within 90 to 120 days. Any organization that has worked with public serving institutions of this size realizes that it takes far more time to reach climate satisfaction. And so I would ask this committee to do due diligence and come back and ask questions further about demonstrating track record of working with climate improvement processes within 190 to 120 days. Others said 60 to 70 days, 90 to 120 days, 30 to 60 days. There is no way that you do an adequate assessment with focus groups, with surveys, with the kinds of instruments that are used, and then turn around and say it's aligned with the library's strategic plan, that the staff also supported it. I'd like to know who the staff members were. I guess that's the third part. And that this process would improve the climate of our Indianapolis Public Library, which back in June, very clear, we were told to act with urgency.
Okay, did you want to comment now, Paul, or you wanted to, Mr. Curtis ask this question and make this comment?
Curtis, you can go ahead.
I was one of the members that voted for Ice Miller to conduct the climate improvement process. I took into mind a lot of different aspects within the organizational structure, what they wanted to do and how they want to improve the climate process. A lot of my decision was hinged off recruitment as we look for another CEO, as we also look at compensation structure that was brought up, tonight, as one of our guests has spoke about, and retention and development, to name just a couple that Hope was discussing. I do understand that they had a substantially higher estimated cost to produce the climate improvement process. However, they checked off a lot of the boxes that a lot of the other vendors during our interaction with them in the committee. I didn't feel that any of them were insufficient, but I thought that Ice Miller was one of the best suited for the climate improvement process. They pretty much tackled everything that we've been discussing over the past few months with regards to what can we do as a library to make things better for our staff and employees. I did say in the discussion too that Performance 3 was a very good choice as well. And I felt that although Ice Miller didn't do like the training component, Performance 3 was already working with library staff. They've done retreats and other training sessions with the staff prior to the CEO leaving the organization. And so I felt that they would have been best suited after we went through the whole process to look at some of the training and implementation of what is found throughout the climate improvement process. I am always concerned about how long should it take? Should it take 60? Should it take 90? Or should it be indefinite until we have the sufficient information that we need from the staff? So I feel that as a start, they hit a lot of the different components that we've been looking for a long period of time in our discussions as a board. And I think that's a relatively more than a starting point, because as we see through the matrix, some of them didn't have a lot of the different components within, the check boxes of what we were looking for. And I took that into account. That's the reason why their estimated cost was higher than the rest. And so I am very mindful of the budget and how that impacts the organization. But for us to encompass and have the security, the sense of security that we need through the process, that's the reason why I have recommended Ice Miller to do the climate agreement process. With keeping in mind that, like you said, Dr. Machado, I mean, if there are some things that we need to look at as we go through the process, maybe we can address those if they don't hit those. I think it's incumbent on us as a board, if they're not fulfilling what we're asking them to do, for us to have them go back to the drawing board and make sure that they cover all the bases that we've been looking for.
I really appreciate what you pointed out. I fail to see anything that demonstrates a track record of experience practices with climate improvement processes. I see diversity, equity, and inclusion discussion. And Hope's presentation clearly identified diversity, equity, inclusion, expertise. That is not all of what a climate improvement process entails. And at the very beginning of this whole discussion, back in June, I laid out very clearly a number of the different things that have to be addressed, none of which have been tied to a climate improvement process, which includes building capacity. That's why when you said the whole idea of paying attention to performance evaluation, it was critical. So as I look to see, okay, what does this law firm have experience in doing in terms of climate improvement processes? That includes the financial management, that includes leadership development, that includes cohesiveness, all of these things that have been indicated as critical. And so I think to agree to a contract and then afterwards say, well, you didn't hit on these, is problematic. And I don't want to say that they did not check all the boxes, because clearly they checked all the boxes. When informed about what else needed to be done, they checked all the boxes. How much leeway was given to the other organizations to come back and say, oh, we need to address this, 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 and this. How much time frame was given for that? And I really believe that that's important, and that from what I've heard, that's what was done. That we said, you need to pay attention to some more of these details. And I kept thinking, I want to not be suspicious. How in the world do they check everything? And they've never done a climate improvement process at all for an organization of this type. Interesting. But to my chagrin, I didn't see that at all, that they had that capability. I saw the diversity, just as Hope had mentioned, the hope of speaking to diversity, equity, inclusion, but without the complexity. And to not speak to the complexity of a climate improvement process, to not speak to that complexity, and to allocate funds upfront for it, I find that deeply troubling.
Further comments? Hope?
Sure. There were a couple of things that I wanted to respond to. One, the time frame listed there is 90 to 120 days. That's related to the length of the engagement. If you'll, in the proposal, Ice Miller outlines 5 steps in the climate improvement process. What they're proposing to do is to lead the libraries in 3 of them, and they will be assembling the group, the Racial Equity Climate Study Action Team. Ostensibly, that team will be set up and trained to do the internal capacity that you talked about, to lead the library through the additional improvement of the climate with the assistance and advice of Ice Miller. I think those are the 3 things. you asked what staff was involved. We heard from the interim CEO and the interim HR director.
And that was the extent of the staff. that you
Oh,
were referencing?
we also heard from, there, yeah.
So when you said that the staff had, you said that the staff had,
We
staff also supported it, you mean our administration had supported it?
I'd like to
Thank you.
comment as well, if I can. TD, any comments or questions?
Thank you, Judge. No, I'm good.
My understanding, we had the 3 presentations and 2 more presentations came. And then all were giving the same time frame to respond to questions because we all got the request for questions to submit them by a certain time. So from what I understand, everyone, all the 5 presenters got the questions that were submitted by the board at the same time and were given the same deadline to get the answers back. So I don't think anyone got a heads up or anyone got extra time on that from that process. If I'm remembering the sequence of events correct.
That's correct.
Given the same deadline to respond to the question.
And given the questions at the same time.
Yeah, and I was referring to what happened prior to the call for submissions. What happened, what kind of information were different groups, including Ice Miller, whatever it takes, Black Women Wise, Great Lakes, P3, were any of them given any information ahead of this call for proposals? And then what additional information was anyone given that was not tied to the questions that came at a particular time that all were given the same deadline? That's what made me pause and wonder, you know, what type of foray into this was appropriate. Thank
I
you.
believe they
I
were all
can
given
answer
this.
that.
I'm sorry.
Yes, I sent a request, the same language to the first 3, and asked for a fairly quick turnaround. And then when Pat said, identified 2 additional firms, she used the same language. The other information that was provided to them is the strategic plan, the library's strategic plan. Other than that, there was no additional information.
I also would like to, at least from my perspective, I understand we need to be good public servants of public funds. I understand that. We get, I think, the one thing that was made clear to me over the summer, irrespective of some of the smoke that was around, is we need to take a good hard look at ourselves as an organization. So, and it was made clear that if we just go in any process without a full comprehensive look, that people might look at us and say, well, they're just doing the same thing, going through the motions. And we cannot afford that. That's one thing this board made clear to ourselves and to the community. We have one chance to make sure that we get a comprehensive look at ourselves to make sure the community, because we have 600 employees that are looking at us. We need to make everyone happy, not just one group or another. We have the community looking at us. And frankly, we have our board members looking at each other as well. And so board members looking at each other as well in terms of how are we going to approach this. And I rely on the check boxes. Okay, I was there for the presentation. Okay, and then I don't have the expertise that other board members do in some areas. Okay, I understand that. But I am going to rely on what Garrett provided us in terms of what the presentation says, and it was a good presentation. Okay, what Ice Miller says they can do, and I feel confident that the recommendations from the HR committee is made with their sincerest and honest opinion of how we should go forward. Dr. Payne?
I want to make sure everybody understands, once again, there are 3 members on the HR committee. This member did not vote for that. I want to make that very clear. I agree, Judge, with everything you said, but I do not think it has to take $100,000 for for a firm, even if it's a white firm, to do this. They do not even do the training that goes with all of this. So I just want to make this real clear in terms of why I am really, really, as stewards of the community, I do not agree with paying anyone $100,000 for this service.
Any other comments from the board?
Yes. Early in the accountability for the library's climate improvement process dated 7/26/21, I was asked to not only give a timeline, but to share far more information. So I don't go by a checklist or a box. I go by the experiences of working with numerous school corporations and other public serving organizations to make sure that we provide capacity building within the library in order to affect change. As it is right now, our library deserves, our staff deserves to have capacity building so that we are not dependent upon external forces in order to make a difference in terms of our climate. That capacity within the staff and in working with community-based organizations began to really look at how it builds capacity. And I stated that to what extent, and I met with Garrett Mason on more than one occasion in order to outline just what we needed. And so I see a conflict there as well. That Garrett, who worked with us on the anonymous surveys and interviews, said we needed to pay attention to the extent the library staff is guided by an inspiring vision. How useful today is the vision and philosophy? How well does the library strategies link? How are we doing effectively communicating? And far more. I want to make sure that at this point I stop, because otherwise I will continue to list a number of the objections to this approach to deciding on a checklist of things that must be done to improve the climate process without building capacity internal to the library.
Thank you. Any other comments from the board? Seeing none, we'll go forward with the vote. Angie, can we have a call to roll?
Yes, Mr. Biederman.
Abstain?
Mr. Baker.
Approved.
Dr. Mercado.
Object?
Ms. Payne.
Object.
Reverend Robinson.
Approved.
Dessalines.
Approved.
And Mr. Holt.
Approved.
Motion carried. We'll move on to item 7, Facilities Committee. Chairperson Curtis.
We had a couple of things, Judge, that we discussed on September the 15th in the Facilities Committee concerning the Lowry Road building, the selling of that, and the system-wide mechanical maintenance services. If Mike wants to speak about that, please.
One second. At this time, I will convene a public hearing. I will now join the regular meeting and convene a public hearing to consider the disposal of real estate located at 3325 Lowry Road in Annapolis, Indiana. Mike, you mind?
Jump right in.
Go ahead.
Good evening. So the facility committee brings up action item to you. They talk about the sale of the old Eagle Branch, which is at Lowry and 34th Street. It's one that was replaced as part of the new Eagle Branch out on Mobile Road. And we've been taking care of it for the past year and a half, looking for the right person, the right entity to come and pick it up. The board did authorize way back in the middle of 2020 resolution to sell the property. We didn't receive any quotes to that. So we did work with the listing agent, and we did get a proposal, an accepted purchase agreement for that. But that subsequently fell through The board did pass a resolution early this year, I think it was in January of this year, to approve that sale, but that sale fell through with the purchaser. So we did receive another offer. And we have a purchase agreement with them, subject to approval by the library board. And that's where we are here today. The proposal, the purchase price is $200,000.
Yes. Is there anyone from the public who wishes to comment on the real estate located at 33.5 Lawrence Road? Is there a motion to close the public hearing meeting on this particular item? So, there's a second?
Second.
And discussion on closing the public hearing? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll on closing the public hearing?
Yes. Mr. Bierman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Dr. Machado. Approved. Ms. Payne.
Approved.
Reverend Robinson.
Approved.
Ms. Salinas.
Approved.
And Mr. Wolf. Approved. Thank you.
The motion carried. The public hearing is now adjourned and the regular meeting is reconvened. We will now look at resolution 48-2021. Does he have to make further comment on that? Is there any questions from the board on resolution 48-2021? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion on resolution 48? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Bierman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Dr. Machado.
Approved.
Ms. Payne.
Approved.
Reverend Robinson.
Approved.
Ms. Salinas.
Approved.
Mr. Wolf. Approved.
Motion carries. We'll now go to resolution 49.
Resolution 49 also came through the facilities committee with a due pass recommendation. And it is to award a service contract to Ellis Mechanical for mechanical maintenance services here for our facilities. We did use the RFP process, which allows us to look at a number of factors, price being one of them. Quality, customer satisfaction is one. The work plan is another one of the criteria. We did send it out to all the vendors that are listed on page 2 of the board action request. We did post it on our website and did a search of the city's Office of Minority and Women Business Development to identify these vendors. We did receive 4 offers for proposals from offerers. The evaluation committee went back and checked references, to make sure that the lowest vendor was able to provide client satisfaction. Contacted the Indianapolis Parks Department and the fire department, which are 2 of their existing vendors, our clients, and have been for years. And they gave positive reviews. The 4 vendors that we did receive are all, none of them are certified vendors, but Ellis Mechanical did commit to purchasing filters, equipment, and piping from certified vendors. So did come through the committee. Are there any questions?
For a second,
Second.
any further discussion on resolution 49? Seeing none. Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Bierman.
Approved.
Mr. Bixby.
Approved.
Dr. Machado.
Approved.
Ms. Payne.
Approved.
Reverend Robinson.
Approved.
Ms. Salinas.
Approved.
Mr. Wolf. Approved.
All right, thank you. Good evening.
We'll now move to item 8, the library foundation update. After that,
Thank you, Judge Salinas. Every month, the Library Foundation provides an update to the library board. We receive a grant from the Mind Trust as part of the e-learning funding established in the community during COVID. The extended school closures highlighted where resources gaps existed for schools. Instead of all schools having to purchase their own ebook collections, the Access 360 School Share Program allows schools to collaborate to build one collection of ebooks that multiple locations can access. There are currently 166 sites set up with the Access 360, up from 82 sites last summer. Many thanks to all the library staff who are working to increase high school students' access to the collection. We're honored to partner with the CBLC to host Dr. Tyrone McKinley Freeman and Ms. Alicia Bundles for a lecture on Dr. Freeman's book, Madam C.J. Walker, Gospel of Giving. Nearly 90 participants joined the virtual lecture. We would like to say a special thank you to staff from the CBLC Program Department and Communications for their partnership on the event. Dr. Freeman will meet with the foundation board and staff to have more conversation about his research, how his research could help us improve our work with Black donors. The foundation thanks 196 donors who made gifts last month. The following are top corporate and foundation contributors. If you should have an opportunity to thank these donors, we would be grateful. Cortiva, Eli Lilly and Company Foundation, Inc., University of Indianapolis. This month, the Library Foundation is proud to provide more than $241,000 for library programs and initiatives. Examples of major initiatives sponsored or supported include McFadden Lecture, Early Literacy Specialist, On the Road to Reading, and high school ebooks. Judge, that concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you. Any questions of Pastor Robinson on the Library Foundation update? Seeing none, we'll move on to item 9, the report of the interim CEO. John?
Thank you, Judge. So what you've got in your packet is just a kind of a high-level overview of how I've been spending 4 weeks that I've been serving as the interim CEO. I've been sending the board kind of item level updates on a weekly basis, so you've got that detail in your inbox, but I thought I would provide this kind of a 10,000 foot view for the board and also for the staff and any of the public who are watching what I've been up to. It's been a lot of listening, a lot of branch visits. I've been going to branch staff meetings. I've been going to I've been holding office hours in branches so that people can approach me, kind of one-on-one off the record if they want to and talk about things. And like Hope mentioned before, the topics that I've been hearing a lot about are the climate improvement process, the CEO search, and also COVID hasn't gone anywhere, it's still on everybody's mind. Additionally, we had a town hall meeting, an all-staff town hall, a Zoom town hall, where all staff were invited to come and ask questions either in real time or anonymously in advance. And we also recorded that event and made it available to staff afterwards if they couldn't attend. The feedback was pretty positive about that, so we plan to do more of those. Potentially involve more administrators in addition to just myself. I think there is an appetite out there for dialogue. And let's see, some stakeholder meetings. So I'll say most of my time for the last few weeks has been focused internally on staff constituencies, staff stakeholders. Recently, I've been kind of turning outwards though and starting to touch base with the people I mentioned here, people like former board members, union leadership, other folks who I think needed an individual touch point with the CEO and hearing their concerns. Roberta Jaggers and I met with CICF leadership last week, right before I left town. That was a good conversation. The city's Government Alliance on Racial Equity, working group, etc., those kind of folks. So like I said in my report, I know I'm not done yet. I've got a long list to work down. I know I haven't gotten to anyone, but my hope is that by October, I can bring to you basically a distilled list of things that I've heard out there and plans to address each of them and steps that we can take in this time as interim. If we can't wrap them up during the interim period, then I plan to just pass that on to the permanent CEO so that they can consider it as the permanent CEO. So again, that's just a high level overview. I'm happy to answer questions about any of that or about anything else that you might like to ask.
Will you share a little bit more about your meeting with CICF?
Sure, absolutely. So that was on Tuesday afternoon, the evening before I left town. For everybody's context, I had death in the family and I had to leave town for a funeral. So I haven't gone back and looked at the detailed notes that Roberta provided. But generally, our goal of that meeting was to just open up a conversation, a face-to-face conversation. I don't know, the folks we met with were Brian Payne, Latasha Sturdivant, and Tamara Winfrey Harris, who I don't know well on a personal level, so I just kind of wanted to introduce myself, open that conversation, and you know, get a feel for where they think things should head and what they think should happen. And I don't want to betray anyone's confidence, obviously, and talk too much about what was said. But it was constructive, it was frank, and it was honest, and I heard some things that I needed to hear. So we plan to have regular touch points going forward as the climate improvement process proceeds, and they would like to know how that's going. And you know, other things like programmatic updates about the projects that they work with us on, things like that. Does that answer your question?
Any additional questions from the board? Yeah, I do believe you have a resolution, right?
We also have the routine travel resolution.
Is there any highlights on resolution 50 the board should know about?
Nothing out of the ordinary.
Any questions from the board as far as resolution 50-2021? Is there a motion to approve?
So
Is there a second? All right, any further discussion on resolution 50? Seeing none, Angie, can we have a call to roll, please?
Mr. Biederman,
Approved.
Mr. Bixby,
Approved.
Dr. McCarter,
Abstain?
Reverend Robinson,
Approve.
Judge Salinas,
Mr. Captain?
no, we have,
Abstain?
Okay. Approved.
and Mr. Wolf.
Approved.
So we have abstentions from Ms. King and Dr. McCarter.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion carries. Monthly CEO report?
That's the one.
That was it? Okay.
Sorry, I went out there.
All right, no worries. All right, we do have item 12, discussion of future items. This time is made available for discussion of items that are not on the agenda, which are of interest to the library board members, and the opportunity is given to suggest items to be included in future library board meetings. I do believe one of our board members wants to take some time here, right?
Yes, I have two things. First of all, I want to say that I did go to Nora Branch for their 50th anniversary, and it was wonderful. They had jazz playing, pizza, a beautiful display on racial equity right there. So I want to commend Nora Branch. And then I have something that's a response to a media article. And it says, it was brought to my attention, I want y'all to hear this, that during the furor going on in the media about conditions at the library, a very negative remark was attributed to me that was said about Black administrative staff of all people. So I want to apologize and clear this up right now. It is hard to believe that I would ever say anything negative about this group of employees because of the honor and respect I have for who they are, what they do, and the love that they demonstrate for the library and community on a daily basis. And you do this despite the odds that the systems continue to present. This, in fact, can be said about all employees of IndyPL. The work you do is beyond the call of duty. So please know how much all of you mean to us, how much you are loved, and how much you are appreciated. Thank you for this opportunity to speak.
Any other comments from the board? I entertain a motion to adjourn.
moved.
For a second? Our next board meeting is October 25th. I think everyone, if anybody opposes the motion to adjourn, signify by saying nay.